Hello everyone, my name is Jasbir.
And I'm Zann.
And this is Leading Through the Middle. Now, Leading Through the Middle is our attempt at a new podcast to help leaders living life in the middle, right? You're in the middle of your careers, in the middle of the organizations with bosses above you, teams below you, and peers to work with. And we've got all these complexities to navigate.
Yeah.
This podcast is designed to help us work through these challenges together and share with you what we're learning from our clients, the research about how leaders can optimize their effectiveness in their careers and personally in life through the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So Jasbir and I, we are leadership consultants. We have been at it for quite a while, and we also face challenges. So we want to make you feel like you have a friend to talk to and that your struggles are not alone. That is our intention of this podcast.
Okay. So Zen, what are we talking about today?
Good question. I was thinking I want to talk about giving feedback to peers. Have you done that before? Because I struggle with it.
Okay, giving feedback to peers. I guess as leaders, we obviously have teams that we have to take care of, and we're very accustomed to giving feedback to our subordinates.
Yes.
Your question here is, let's take it up a level. We've got that big peer group of fellow leaders, whether it's section leaders, fellow directors, and we collaborate a lot with them. And so how do we give them feedback when we don't have any authority over them?
Exactly. And I recently personally struggle with it. So I want to ask you, would you do it? You know, if let's say a peer interacted with you, there is some feedback you want to give to this person, you know, what is your internal monologue? Would you do it? Would you hesitate? Should we even give feedback to peers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? I think the first question is why don't we give feedback, right? It's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
We wonder whether it's going to spoil the relationship. If I were to tell, hey, Zan's a fellow leader in the business, if I were to go to Zan and tell her, hey, Zan, I didn't appreciate that, will we be able to work together again?
Yeah.
I guess the question on my mind is, do we have anything to gain from providing the feedback? I guess the second question is not about whether I have anything to gain. The second question is, do I have to work with this person again? Right. So what I'm saying is, what's the consequence of not giving the feedback?
Yes.
So,
what's the price you pay?
Yeah, if I didn't give the feedback.
Yeah.
So if I worked with you and I didn't appreciate something in that way and it wasn't effective, my question is not should I give the feedback? My question is, okay, will I have to work with Zan again?
Yes.
Right? And if the answer is yes, then there's a bigger reason to say, okay, I need to give the feedback so I don't have to experience that negativity again.
Yes. I think I was working with a coach, right? And then she told me, we teach people how to treat us. And if somebody has crossed the boundary in some way, and it's our responsibility to share with them because they're not in the know. They're not aware of it. Right. I remember you told me about a cable story, remember? That had to do with also giving feedback, being a little bit assertive.
A cable story.
From Anna.
From Anna. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So Anna is our colleague. I don't know whether she'll appreciate me mentioning her name, but it was really brilliant. It caught me off guard, but I took a step back and I was like, wow, this is correct. So I borrowed her iPhone cable and I used it. And for various reasons, I packed up and I left it on the table that I was sitting next to her. I didn't physically unplug it and give it back to her. The next day or 2 days later, I said, hey, Anna, can I borrow your cable again? And she looked at me dead in the eye and she's like, well, Jess, you can borrow this cable again. I know it's torn up and half broken, but if you're going to borrow it, I want you to return it.
Wow.
And I was like, you go, girl. Like, all right, don't let me just take you for granted, right? Don't let me take your kindness for granted.
It's a tiny thing, but if you know Anna is really friendly, you know, kind.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. And I think this was a case where a boundary was crossed. She would like for an action, right? Which is to return the cable properly to her. Yeah. And she just said it. Yeah. She was firm about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little incident, but I think this is an example of how, this is also feedback. Yeah.
No, that's feedback, right? So I guess the question is, are we going to work with this person again? Would this situation happen to me again? Do I want to do anything about it?
Yeah.
If it was, you know, I worked with you one time and you're from 3 departments away and we're never going to work with each other again, I don't have anything to gain from helping you, right? Okay, I can be magnanimous and I can feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to give Zan this feedback and help her be a better leader. And that can be a good contribution to her team. And that, if I'm driven by that then sure, I can overcome the difficulty and give you the feedback.
Yes.
But if really I feel awkward about it and I have nothing to gain from giving you the feedback because we're not going to work together again, then I'm just going to forget it.
I know.
On the other hand, if you're in a adjacent team and we work together every 2 months, I don't want to have that negative feeling of whatever you have done to me linger on 5 times a year.
Sometimes it eats you up inside. It is almost like an uncomfort, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about, okay, when we should do it, if we should do it, right? We should do it if we need to teach the other person how to treat us better, if we were going to work with them again. How do we do it is my next question, right? Because it is difficult, which is why we're talking about it today. It is an advanced skill set, giving feedback to a peer. What do you think is important for us to know when we are giving this feedback so that it will be well received, right? We will not end up, oh, we're not friends anymore. Or the person doesn't want to work with us anymore, which could happen if feedback is not given in the correct way. What do you think are the things that we need to take care of?
I think that the human ego is a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
And the human ego has three broad considerations, or the three broad needs.
Yes.
One need of the human ego is to feel that they are right. We all love to be right? Nobody wants to be wrong, right? The human ego needs to look good. And that's why we have our Instagram and we only post the best things and the most curated photos of our lives. So I said, be right, look good. And the last thing I believe is about feeling safe. Now, the holy trinity of the human ego, the being right, looking good, feeling safe. I mean, this wasn't something I came up with. It's something that one of my mentors taught me before. But I think it makes a lot of sense, right? If you look at it this way, when we give feedback, the difficulty in feedback, people sometimes don't really like getting feedback, right? Because they feel like, oh, now do I look bad in someone's eyes?
Or don't tell me what to do. Like, who are you to tell me what to do?
Yeah, I know what to do. I want to be right, right? Or the last one is, if someone gives me feedback, then are they questioning my competence, and are they not gonna see me as effective in this job? And is my job insecure? So there's that safety issue. So if we keep that in mind, then designing our feedback in a way that helps people feel right, feel like they look good and feel safe, that is our guiding, philosophy or guiding approach to do this effectively, I believe.
When you say that, I think about the course of my career and the people who have given me feedback and those that have left a lasting impression. And I think they took this human ego triad into account.
Right.
Yeah. I recall when I was in the Singapore government, I was still a young facilitator.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was still trying to hone my craft. And I was in the auditorium. It was an auditorium that could fit about 200, right? And I was just rehearsing, feeling the space, and I have my script and I was rehearsing. Suddenly, one of my senior, so he's a really lovely mentor. He's called Douglas. I don't think he minds me saying his name. He came in and he was like, "Oh, hey Zann, what are you up to?" And I immediately sort of panicked inside. I had anxiety, like, oh my gosh, why is he doing here? He's a very senior consultant.
Right.
And I said, I'm rehearsing for this event that I have to host, right, for a lot of people tomorrow. And he said, oh, go ahead, rehearse, right? I will sit in the front row. Yeah. And I was like, I had panic, because from the previous experience that I had with feedback, it didn't land really well. I started to feel a bit self-conscious, right? So anyway, he was there. I couldn't say no. And I just started rehearsing. After about 5 minutes, and he said, hey Zann, wow, I love your energy. I love how engaging you are. May I give you a suggestion? So I have never had people ask me for permission before.
Okay.
And the word he used wasn't like, may I give you a feedback? He said, may I give you a suggestion?
Yep.
That will really help enhance this.
It's a very subtle tweak.
Yeah, very subtle.
It's not feedback, it's a suggestion.
Yes.
And the suggestion suggests that, there's nothing really wrong here, but it's just an optional idea for improvement.
Exactly.
So again, I'm protecting your need to be right.
Yes, the human ego. And then, of course, I said, yes, please give me a suggestion. I'd love to hear it, right?
Okay.
Because he's very seasoned. And he said, instead of this, perhaps try this. This will really help, right? And I was like, okay, thank you so much. And he said, by the way, it's a little bit like dotting the dragon with the eye in the last bit. So he's like, it's really enhancing.
You mean
embellishing.
dotting the eye of the dragon?
Yes, dotting the eye of a dragon. It's like a Chinese, because he has a Chinese wife. So he said, yeah, it's really, all about that. And imagine, actually, to be honest, I was really anxious because it was one of my first events.
Yeah.
If he had given me, say, feedback, like a long list of things, don't do this, do that, or da-da-da, I think I would be quite disheartened going into the real session.
Yeah.
I think he was very cognizant of that as a leader, and it was done with a lot of finesse, I would say. Now, on hindsight, that I know how difficult it is to provide feedback to anyone.
Yeah.
He really took care of the human ego.
Yeah, I really like that. So when you say, my feedback or my suggestion is just to help you dot the eye of the dragon.
Yes.
It suggests that, well, you've already drawn or painted this beautiful dragon.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to give you one little dot, which means that, hey, you are already right.
Yeah.
You already look good in my eye. And now this is just one additional piece that, I think if I hear that, I feel very comfortable that, I'm ready to receive this feedback.
Yes.
And of course, he asked for permission as well.
Exactly. Of course, I feel like it might not be that I've gotten the entire dragon. He wanted to protect the human ego.
Yeah.
And it's all about making the other person feel good about themselves as well in the process. So we talk about the human ego looking good, to be right, to feel safe, and how in our feedback giving, we need to take care of that with the choice of words, asking for permission, things like that. The other technique I hear you talk about quite often, and we also apply this in our day-to-day, is staying in your lane. Remember, we talk about staying in your lane.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what it means to stay in your lane.
I think when giving feedback to peers especially, right? I mean, no peer wants to feel like my other peer is one-upping me or judging me or higher than thou. You're a peer, you're not a boss. So with peers especially, we have to give feedback from our experience and own the feedback, right? So what that means is, hey Zann, rather than saying, hey Zann, last week at the meeting you were rude or you were bossy or you were domineering, that's me casting judgment on Zann. And I'm getting into Zann's lane. I don't know what Zann was doing. I don't know whether Zann was really rude. Right? What I can say is, from my experience in my lane, is, hey Zann, in the meeting I felt I couldn't get a word in. In the meeting I felt a little bit afraid to speak up at times. That's my lane, right? And I particularly felt this way more when I heard you raise the voice. That troubled me a little bit, and I'm not sure whether that was the most effective way for us to have a brainstorm.
Let me clarify. So it's more like you use the I language as well.
Yeah.
You're staying in your lane, describing how you felt, your perception of it.
Exactly.
You're not kind of passing judgment on my behavior and say you were rude.
Yeah.
You spoke too loud.
My experience was that I felt afraid to speak up. My observation was that when you raised your voice, and that's obviously factual, right? When the voice goes up, goes down, it's factual. It's not when you shouted. Shouted is a judgment, or when you were rude, that's a judgment call. But objectively, nobody will deny when the voice goes up and goes down, right? So I'm just trying to be as objective as possible, and I'm using my perspective.
Yeah, because I can imagine if you say, Zann, you were very rude.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get really defensive. My ego is...
Because you're not a rude person.
How dare you say I was rude? What do you mean?
Yeah, in your mind, you're going, well, I'm not a rude person. You want to look good, right?
Yeah.
And so now this comment is making you not look good because there's a challenge to how you see yourself. You see yourself as a kind person. Being called rude is affront to that.
Yeah. So staying in your lane is really important. Again, it's using the I, keeping it to your feelings, not so much passing judgment.
Yeah.
The other thing we talk about is borrowing authority. Yeah.
Okay.
I remember I had one time where I had to give this peer some feedback.
Okay.
And I think I was worried that she was going to get defensive.
Okay.
Yeah. So I use this technique that, you talk about, borrow authority. And I just shared with her that, hey, you know what? In the last meeting that we had, I have an idea to help us be more engaged, because it was a huge meeting and people were not engaged, and she was trying really hard to make people speak up. Yeah. And I say I learned from one of the mentors I had in Accenture, right? This technique called conversational turn-taking, right? Do you think we could try it in the next meeting? Because it has worked for me really well when he taught me about this. So even though it was an idea that I had, but I just borrowed some authority. Right.
Yeah.
What are other ways that you have tried, in terms of borrowing authority?
Yeah, I think the other day I was coaching a group of leaders who are, kind of like us, right, in the middle. And one of the frustrations they get is, people, don't really contribute in meetings.
Yeah.
Some people are late for meetings, and it was just about the meeting culture. And so I didn't, want to just say, hey, this is what you should do, because I think I want to borrow authority. I feel that's more credible. So I said, hey, Adam Grant actually had a point of view on running a meeting. And Adam Grant, as you know, is a very famous author and speaker and TED Talks and researcher from Wharton. And actually, he had a point of view. He said we should only have meetings when there's 4 reasons present, or one of 4 reasons present, to learn something together that's important for our collective growth, to decide something as a team, to actually do something, or to celebrate something. So there was 4 reasons to have a meeting. And so my feedback to those clients were, well, if we reduce the number of meetings by just isolating to these 4 things, then when there's less being done, okay, maybe people will be more inclined to turn up and participate. But I use the authority of Adam Grant rather than here's what you should do, because they trust Adam Grant. They've read his books.
Yes.
Right?
Wow, I love Adam Grant.
Yeah. So I think borrowing authority just simply means, rather than you as the peer telling someone that, hey, I know better than you.
Yes.
No, there's somebody else that's factually who knows better than us, right? And he's written a book about it, or he's leading an organization, or he's inspired us before.
Yes.
So let's use their credibility instead of our own.
Exactly. I think the last one I had in mind was about linking this piece of feedback or suggestion to the person's personal aspirations or intention as we might be aware of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that one, right? How do we do that with peers? Because I think with subordinates, that's much easier, right? So if there's a direct report and I know that person wanted to be a more influential person or get into a leadership role, then I could always say, hey, can I give you some feedback? Do you remember when you shared with me that you wanted to become a manager in the next couple of years? I've got something that's going to help you. That's very easy to do with direct reports. But how do we link personal aspirational goals of a peer in a peer-to-peer setting?
I guess you're right. Trust has to be built before that, and you got to have a certain level of intimacy with this person. So I do know some of my peers are aspiring to be, let's say, senior client partners, and they're working on their executive presence.
Okay.
So I might start off with, hey, Jess, I know that this is an area that you told me before that you're trying to work on.
Yeah.
And we were in this meeting yesterday with the C-suite, right? I made a few observations. I wonder if you're open for, suggestions. Again, I will ask for permission.
Yeah, you're asking for permission and you're calling out what I shared with you as a friend about I want to improve my executive presence. I think that could work.
Exactly.
I think that could work.
So that helps you to lead in, and also you're giving it for the person like a gift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you said the right word, right? This is something that we can do when there's a position of trust, and with that there's a relationship of contribution, right?
Yeah.
Because you trust each other, there's trust means that there's some level of relationship, some level of care.
Yeah.
And with that, you want to actually contribute to that person. There's no longer selfish, am I going to have to work with this person again? There's also a bit of contribution there.
Yes.
And I think when you talk about my aspirations, that spirit of care and contribution becomes much clearer.
Even if I don't know your aspirations, because I remember the first time we worked together, maybe about 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we facilitated together the first time, and it was virtual because COVID.
Yeah.
And I remember you came out to me after our first session and you said, hey, Zann, it was a good session, right? And I know that we're both trying to get engagement, we're trying to do our best and create the largest impact. I felt a little bit off in the second half. Can we have a discussion on this so that we can both see how to work together for the next session? I felt that was also stating your intention. So it's not my aspiration, but it's your and my intention to do the best for the client. And when you said that, it's not about me, right? It's about the outcome of the session. Yeah. I remember we had that conversation the very first. Yeah, I
remember that day. It was my first workshop with anyone from Conference. I mean, I was new to the organization, and it was with you, and that was, and I've heard how great Zann is as a facilitator, And working with you was fun. And I remember struggling at the second part. You're right.
And then we had a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how do we want to do this, right?
Yeah.
What do we want to help each of us? And how can we contribute each other? So it's more like a tweaking. It's also a discussion. I think feedback is also a two-way. Yeah. Because if you sometimes you have this feedback for the other person, you just want to dump whatever you felt there, but then you didn't invite the two-way conversation. Then that is also not face saving. Yeah.
Because in that incident, it was your client, right? I remember it was your client. I was new. And I'm thinking, okay, I want to get a chance to get a bit more word in, but I don't know how to do it because it's Zann's client. She's got the relationship. So if I were to go up to you and say, hey, Zann, I need you to make more space for me to speak up, that might be subtly telling Zann, hey, shut up.
Shut up.
You're talking too much.
But, and I would be offended by it, but my ego is not going to get hurt.
So then that's why I was thinking, okay, Zann, I put it from my own lane, right? I was feeling a bit off about how well I could contribute in that second half. Let's figure out how to work better.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. Yeah. So, okay, so we have talked about a couple of things. Let's sum up. First of all, we talk about should we even give feedback to peers?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we said, hey, what's the price you pay if you don't?
Yeah, this is a selfish perspective, right? Of course, there's a school of thought that says, no, you have to give feedback because you're helping the other person grow.
Yes.
And I think we all can trust our judgment when that other person may be ready or not to grow and have that feedback, right? So if we are worried about how well they're going to take it, probably that's an indicator that, okay, they're not ready to receive from a growth point of view.
Yes.
Then we only do it when we have a need to do it, that we're going to work with that person again and we don't want to suffer that
because
same
let's
trouble.
admit it, there could be a lot of people that you want to give feedback to, but you gotta pick the one that's gonna bring you the best outcome as well.
Yeah, so
let's be real about it, right? Yeah. And then we talk about taking care of the human ego, feeling safe,
being right, looking good, right? Everyone wants to do those wants to have those three things, and so when we provide the feedback, we got to take care to make sure they look good. Don't make them look wrong. Make them feel right. Make them feel safe. Now, the point about safety, right? We didn't really cover that. Now, in historical, caveman time, it was physical safety, right? I think now it's about emotional safety. So when we give people feedback, it's about we're still friends. Yeah. Where you're still a valuable contributor to the team. Yes. It's not your job's not at risk. So that's what's the underlying thing, the emotional safety of the other person. You gotta take care of that. Yeah.
We need to do a whole other podcast about like sandwich feedback, but that's for another podcast.
For sure.
Yeah. So human ego, we also talk about if you're gonna give feedback, remember to stay in your lane. Use the I language. Do not accuse or pass judgment on the other person's behavior, right? And then if you're going to give feedback to your peer and you don't want to see like you're one-upping them, you could also borrow authority from someone else. Yeah. So that helps to protect the human ego. Yeah. Right? And then we also talk about linking it to your intention, the person's aspirations, or the shared intention for a particular project or task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you raised the thing, right? The sandwich. So those are great hows and all that. But often people say, should I use the sandwich and all that? What's your point of view on the feedback sandwich?
To be honest, I have seen people do your strengths, what I really like about what you did in this project, what I will enhance. So it's more like it's not like a sandwich, but it's more like
Balanced.
2-tier.
right.
Because my ego again gets hurt if all you see are the critical, all you want to do is to see things that has to be enhanced. Yeah. And I want to know what I've done well, so I continue doing it. And what is the percentage that needs to be refined? Right. That makes me feel like my efforts are being acknowledged.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? You put a balanced point of view. My only trigger with the sandwich model is that people know that there's going to be good news, bad news, and then good news again. And then it starts to appear inauthentic and people start saying, okay, well, what's the bad news? But if we've established that, hey, we work together a lot and we always provide a balanced feedback. And so here's the good stuff, here's the stuff to improve. Yeah. I think that makes sense too.
Whenever we run workshops on feedback, I always realize that a lot of people use but. The word but should be banned. So if you
don't like big butts?
No. Actually, I do. But anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, I think when you share feedback, you say, hey Jazz, this was really well done. And how we can enhance it is this. It makes a world of difference. And you can tell whether this person is a seasoned leader that has you know.
Bit of class.
Yes, yes. Instead of, Jasbir, you did this well, but it negates everything. Same thing with parenting. You know, you're a parent, I'm sure. Yeah.
Man, yeah, nobody likes big butts. In feedback, right? In feedback, right? All for body positive and all that, right? But yeah, no, in terms of feedback, the butt is quite a trigger because you may not emotionally get a trigger or a reaction, but you know that something bad's going to come, and it kind of undermines, and you forget about all the other good stuff that was said.
Yeah. So we're going to end with butts today. We're going to end with butts.
End with butts. All right. Like,
end with butts.
Like put an end to the butts. Okay, got it.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. It was lovely. We had a lot of fun. And if you have any comments, questions for us,
or feedback for us.
You don't have to ask for permission this time. Just leave us a comment, and we will see you in our next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to our first one. So feedback, please. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.